Because we're going to kind of do a tag team
That's
a little
right.
bit, so
All right.
I think that makes sense.
So, and I'm also going to introduce then Eric Benson. So Eric Benson is with Clean Water Action New Jersey. He is now, are you the executive director or you statewide?
Campaign director.
So you're the statewide campaign director now, right? So he's responsible for like 220,000 doors being knocked on last time. We thought we were good with like 10,000, right? 220,000 doors. For the congressional elections. And now, so Clean Water Action is, he graduated from Rutgers in 2004.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Are you?
And
Are
he's,
you go?
My daughter's alma mater.
yeah. And so now he is, he's running the statewide campaign, as we said, for Clean Water Action. Now, Clean Water Action is just not about water. It's also doing working on the fossil fuel problem that we have, and I think is that under the title of Empower New Jersey, or?
Multiple hats.
Okay, so I want to thank Eric for being here. They're going to do a presentation together. And one more shout out, because I know it's not going to happen. Christina Clark is here. She's a big environmentalist, and she's running Sunday. So if anybody's in your town or wants to talk to her after, please do. And we have representatives here from Glen Rock after March, Maui after March, Emmanuel Baptist Church who sponsored this, and we have people from Moms Demand Action and J5 Coalition. So thank you, everybody. We're together.
Yeah, so Eric and I are going to kind of tag team this. We put a few slides together, and I am going to take the beginning part and I know that, as Kathy said, and can I just first thank you so much. She is a force to be reckoned with now. All of your team, and I've watched Ridgewood Joel over the last couple years just grow from passion to action, and thank you. And that's what we need to happen, because when we talk about climate change, it's really about the crisis that we're facing. We are living climate change, we'll live it for the rest of our lives. How we live it depends on what we do today. And what I want to do is share with you a little bit, just sort of remind us where we're at, why we're at the situation that we're in. And then Eric is the key person in New Jersey moving us forward on, well, he'll talk more about it, but really to try to call for our governor to stand up tall and really take himself to be the first state of in our country that says we are stopping fossil fuel infrastructure. We're calling for a moratorium. We want to stop it, and Eric's going to talk about that more, about the many projects that are happening in our state. And if we want to be successful in slowing down climate change, because we can't stop it. We will live it, as I said, for the rest of our lives. How we live it and how our children survive it really does work on the policies that are set today, what we do today. And my kids are already in college. Eric has little kids, and wherever you are, whether an aunt and uncle, a parent, a grandparent, they're really counting on us. And I think lately we've been listening to the voices of children, from Greta Thunberg in Sweden, who's was energized by our Parkland students in Florida, who has energized students around the world, and tens of thousands of students every week, and we don't see it in our media, are walking out of school. They're going on strike. Millions of students. She was in the European Parliament yesterday, calling on well, again, that's a whole other thing, but we can't put it on our children's shoulders, right? They don't vote, we vote. It is our responsibility. So anyways, let's just move forward and show you a little bit where we're at. Well, Eric put this in here. We have a climate champion, potentially. He talks the talk, our governor. And he's got a lot of forces pushing against him, and we need to help him walk that walk. There's a sort of, the scientists have been ringing the alarm bells for years. I've been working on climate policy, as Kathy said, since the 1990s, since the first Earth Summit, but the scientific evidence is just becoming clearer and clearer with peer-reviewed studies and more data that shows us the direct relationship to what we are doing it to cause our climate to change. And yes, the climate has been changing forever. It's never changed in the blink of an eye like it's been doing now. And that is because of us. And so we're going to talk about the National Climate Assessment, which is a U.S. Report of 13 different agencies that says that we are reaching the brink on climate change. On the IPCC, which is the International Panel on Climate Change report, a report by the United Nations updated every 3 and 4 years by climate scientists, and that's important because we want to know when we're reading reports that they're being done by people working on the reality of climate change. Because you'll read 1,000 scientists said climate change isn't happening. Well, who are those people? And that just isn't true. So, and we're going to talk about how we are organizing. So, the International Panel on Climate Change report came out in October of 2018. And really the kind of 5 big takeaways from it, and it's a long scientific report, but really are that we are already at 1 degree of warming. And scientists are telling us we need to hold warming at 1.5 degrees or do our best there, but at 2 degrees. But what this report says to us, and this was a report to policymakers, that there is a big difference between where we're at today, where we are seeing climate change. We're seeing increased extreme weather events. We are seeing sea level rise that's beginning to really show its face to us. And that is just at 1 degree. So there's a big difference between where we're at now than where we will be at 1.5 degrees, and a huge difference between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees. And that really if we don't by 2030, so they've given us this time window, which is 11 years, to pull back on our greenhouse gas emissions by 45%, and then by 0 by 2050. And so there are things we can do as a state, as a country, to move legislation to not just set goals, but we have to set intermediate goals, and Eric will share more about that so that we can actually achieve this and get to where we're going. And we know, and what the report said, is it's a huge ask, right? Because we aren't moving right now. So to move where we have to in 11 short years, you know, I don't know how many of you watch Grey's Anatomy. It's been on for more than 11 years. When you just think about, you know, if you're changing the light bulb and you're putting in an LED, which most of us are doing now because we're all concerned about energy, they last for 20 years. You know, time goes really fast, and I see that with my 19 and 21-year-olds. So 11 years goes really fast. And we know there was this big climate event in Paris in 2015 where governments came together and came to agreement on what we need to do to address climate change, but it was an agreement. It wasn't far enough. It won't get us where we need to go, and we need to go farther and faster. So those are kind of the main broad takeaways of the IPCC report. And you know, we're talking fast here, and we can get into the weeds in more details if you want after with questions. The next slide is about the National Climate Assessment, which came out in November of 2018, and that was done by our government. So that was done by over the course of a number of years by our U.S. government, and very similar findings that were part of the IPCC report is that we are changing our planet faster and at a greater speed than any time in the history of our planet, which is, you know, 4 billion years old. So we are doing things that have never happened before in the lifetime of an individual. And that the impacts, if we don't reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, will be and are already severe. That the risks continue to grow, right? And it's not just some of us, it's all of us, but those risks and the harm happens to those that not only around the world but in our own country that are least responsible for it, that are least causing it, and are most directly hurt by it. The elderly, our children, people from low income communities where we're putting these dirty fossil fuel plants that Eric's going to share more about. Those are realities. Asthma, you know, how many of you have somebody in your family that has asthma, right? Pollution that we're putting into our atmosphere from carbon emissions, poison ivy. Poison ivy, I don't know if you know those connections between the way that the oils are much stronger because of the greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. And there are peer-reviewed studies that are making those connections, and we're finding those things out. So Lyme disease, tick-borne illnesses, right? Those are because it's warmer in the winters and we don't go through those same cycles. So those are things that part of what we need to do is connect the dots, not only for ourselves, for our families, for our friends, and for our legacy. And that we're not doing enough now to avoid, same as the IPCC report, those worst-case scenarios. We have to do much more. We'll go through these ones quickly, but every day we're putting 110 million tons of global warming pollution into the atmosphere. And when I try to describe that to children, because I talk to children, it's like putting 34 million elephants up into the air above your head every day. It's a lot of elephants, right, of African elephants. So, and we're treating our air like an open sewer. We're letting people, it's free to pollute. And maybe if we colored greenhouse gas emissions purple, pink, or blue, we would feel differently and we would do something more quickly. But it's there and it's changing our atmosphere. There are many different sources of greenhouse gases, and we'll go to the next slide. But the largest source of greenhouse gases is the burning of fossil fuels. And you click on the next one. And this has increased substantially. I mean, fossil fuels helped us evolve, helped us become the industrialized giants that we are. But we know now, it's like knowing that cigarettes cause cancer. We know that fossil fuels are causing our climate to change. So we need to draw down. We know that we are releasing carbon into the atmosphere. So we have entered the age of the Anthropocene. That's what the scientists are describing, this epoch that we're in. It is the age of man. We are stronger natural forces, stronger than any of the natural forces, like where the climate changed in the past because of volcanic eruptions or the sun or anything else that people are going to tell you, well, that's what causes our climate to change. We are the strongest forces of nature, and we are in the Anthropocene. 18 of the 19 hottest years on record have occurred since 2001, with the last 4 years being the hottest. So that's reality. That's what scientists are telling us. And I want to just quickly touch on, and again in the conversation we can talk about it after, but there is, so what do we do, right? Is national climate action possible? We didn't think national climate action was even a near possibility since 2016, right? But the Green New Deal, at this new Congress, we are talking about national climate action. For the first time, something that we thought it would be put off till 2020 or beyond. So what is it? Well, right now, it's certainly made a lot of people afraid. It's created a lot of controversy and a lot of discussion. But really, it's goals and principles. It's an idea. And there are ideas and ideals that I think we can all agree on. It's a little bit small, so I'm actually going to read it. Normally I always read from the side, but here's the 5 main goals of it. That we stop all greenhouse gas emissions, and whether it's by 2030 or 2035, but through a just and fair transition. So that's really an important part of it all too, right? For communities and workers, that we create millions of good high-wage jobs and ensure prosperity and economic security for all people in the United States. Really? Who's going to disagree with that? That we invest in infrastructure and industry of the United States to sustainably meet the challenges of the 21st century. Good idea. Yeah. Secure clean air and water, climate and community resilience, healthy food, access to nature, and a sustainable environment for all. Sounds pretty good. Yes. And we promote justice and equity by stopping current, preventing future, and repairing the historic oppression of frontline and vulnerable communities. Those are the broad ideas of the Green New Deal. And working out the details, that is going to take us some years to move forward. And it could be, is it going to be one big omnibus legislation, or is it going to be multiple, every department in the United States is going to have its own Green New Deal. That could be it too. But so anybody that tells you, terrible idea, it's not a terrible idea. You know, there are many positives in there that we can all come to agreement on, whatever side of the aisle you're on. Working out the details has yet to be done. And people can say the devil's in the details, but you know what? There was this great idea in the early 60s that we were going to go to the moon in 10 years. We didn't know how we were going to get there, if we could get there. Couldn't imagine getting there, but we were going to do it because our president said we were going to do it. And we did it. And so in 10 years, can we do this audacious plan? You know, we should try. So when you're communicating it to people about it, what should we do? You know what? I think that presenting that idea, like the moonshot, we got to go big, right? We got to go bold. We have to call on America's can-do spirit. We can do this, and we need to do it. And it will be positive. It will put people to work. It'll create opportunities for our children. And we should focus on what we can gain by it, not what we have to lose. It's not about right versus left. We should all be supporting it, whether we're Democrat, Republican, or in between. It's to create less distance between the bottom and the top. And it's about climate. It's about health. It's about justice and the economic solutions. And you can move on to the next one. And I'm going to leave it to Eric to then, so this is at the national level, although there is a Green New Deal that's been proposed. There's a bill in New York. There's a bill in Minnesota. We could have a state Green New Deal too, and maybe it can encompass some of the things that Eric's going to talk about. Thanks, Eric.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm in Montclair, New Jersey normally, and we joke that Ridgewood is the Montclair of Bergen County. You have arrangements, we have arrangements. So I want to talk a little bit about the governor's administration's actions to date on climate change. And if you read in the newspaper, if you listen to the radio, the governor is quick to tout his accomplishments on green energy. And you'll hear these talking points over and over again from the governor. The BPU, which is our Board of Public Utilities, regulates our energy rates, prices, where it's coming from. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. There's a lot of agencies that are dealing with climate. Department of Transportation, 40% of our climate emissions come from vehicles. So they'll tell you we're doing a great job. There's offshore wind. The governor's been excellent and very strong on offshore wind. And right now they have a proposal out. It's the largest open bid for offshore wind right now. While we're going backwards nationally, the governor says we're getting back into join the U.S. Climate Alliance. We are going to oppose all offshore drilling. Within his first week of becoming governor, he quickly reversed Chris Christie's actions and said, we're going to get back into RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and that's a regional cap and trade. So he's quick to talk about all these great things that he's doing for clean energy. But what he's not mentioning is the areas that, the bad energy is, fossil fuels. There's a lot of projects that have been moving forward, and there's been not enough action on the administration's front, but we don't hear about that. That's not what we're reading about in the news. So there's a couple of key areas that there's room for improvement, and we could easily be a national leader that we pointed out. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection has had the authority since 2005 to regulate carbon dioxide as part of the Global Warming Response Act in 2005-2006. So that gave that law gave the DEP authority to regulate carbon, either do permit process, to regulate it, to reduce or set a limit on it. But they have to put certain rules and framework into place and say, this is how much CO2 we're allowed to emit, or here's the conditions that you may or may not, or you may not exceed this amount of CO2. So even though they've had the authority, they haven't actually drafted the rules. We're about a year into the governor's administration, and we're seeing 8 dark years of the Chris Christie administration. We're seeing a lot of backwards movement on the federal level. This is an easy opportunity to draft the rules and regulate CO2 where the state already has the authority, but they have to move forward with that. There's a number of commissions that regulate different projects. There's the Pinelands Commission, the Highlands Commission. These are areas that are extra level of protection because of open space. There's drinking water protections. It's cultural reasons. So they're protected areas as extra bodies, but a lot of people that are still on those bodies were Chris Christie's appointments. So we know he's been bad on the environment. The governor gets to pick who serves on these committees and makes the decisions.
I got to say one thing when you're saying this. Sweeney gets to approve the appointees, and he's not doing it. And I happen to know, because I happen to know very personally, that he's not doing it.
Right.
So that's different.
And
Yeah.
there's opportunities, the governor's got to make some more recommendations too. So Sweeney is a roadblock in some of these, but also the governor's administration has to put some folks forward. Next page. So where we're at right now, again, we talked about